Hi everyone, today we're going to go over the free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA. So today we'll be going over what the FAFSA is, eligibility requirements for the FAFSA, creating a FSA ID, and some references for veterans specifically. So what is financial aid? It is the primary goal to assist students and families in paying for college. This is based on present financial conditions and recognize that special circumstances can and do affect a person and family's ability to pay for college. The free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA, in which I will be using this acronym throughout this workshop today, is the application that needs to be completed each year if you want to be considered for grants, needs-based scholarships, or to access your federal student loans. So the FAFSA is the application in order to apply for financial aid. So what does the FAFSA do for me? Your college uses this FAFSA to determine your federal aid eligibility. So it uses this to determine scholarships, grants, and loans for the student. So scholarships are free money that you do not need to pay back to anyone. Some examples of where you can find scholarships are through schools, so either the university in which you'll be attending, high schools, any trade schools, things like that, your employers, or private companies and foundations also provide scholarships. Grants are free money that you do not need to pay back to the government. So an example of this is the federal Pell Grant. Lastly, loans are money the government has loaned you to pay for college. You will need to pay back loans, and this is usually required after you have completed your degree. I also like to note, even if you have GI benefits that are covering tuition, you can still be eligible for grants or scholarships, and that can be used for additional educational benefits. So when is the FAFSA open? FAFSA opens October 1st, 2020, and this is for the 2021-2022 school year. So as I said earlier, you're always applying for the year in advance. And the FAFSA is due March 1st, 2021. Next, we're going to go over some general eligibility requirements for the FAFSA. Please note to make sure that your name, social security number, and date of birth are recorded correctly on the FAFSA. Also must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. You need a valid social security number or alien registration number. If you are a male, you need to be registered with a selective service. You need high school diploma or GED. You must be enrolled or accepted for enrollment into an eligible program of study for either degree, certificate, or any other recognized credentials. And you also must be making satisfactory academic progress as defined by the school. Some things that you must not have that make you not eligible for FAFSA is to have eligibility suspended or terminated due to drug-related conviction, be in default on a federal student loan, or owe repayment to a federal grant. Next, we're going to go over some information that will be requested on the FAFSA, so it's a really good idea to have all of this information ready to go beforehand so you can put this down on the FAFSA very easily. You will need your social security number or your parent's social security number if you're a dependent student. You'll need your driver's license number if you have one, your alien registration number if you're not a registered or not a U.S. citizen. You will need some federal tax information or tax returns, including your IRS W-2 information from 2 years prior to the year that you're going to be submitting the FAFSA for. For example, for the 2021-2022 FAFSA, you will need your 2019 tax information. And this is for you and your spouse if you have a spouse, if you're married, and for your parents if you're a dependent student. You may also need your IRS 1040, any foreign tax returns, any tax returns from any of the places listed below. You will need your record of your untaxed income, such as child support received, interest income, and veterans non-education benefits for you and for your parents if you're a dependent student. Lastly, you'll need any information on cash, savings, and checking account balances, such as investments, including stocks and bonds and real estate. Please note that for the real estate, this is not including the home in which you live in. And if you have any business and farm assets for you and for your parents if you're a dependent student. Now we're going to go over how to create a Federal Student Aid or FSA ID. So you will be using this FSA ID to be able to access certain U.S. Department of Education websites, and this is also how you'll be able to access your FAFSA. So this ID is practically another way of saying that you're creating a username and password to be able to access FAFSA and different education websites. It's important to note that you will be using this ID throughout all of your years of schooling, so it's very important to not lose this information, such as your your username and password, as it is very important and you will need it throughout the years. So in order to create this ID as well as access the FAFSA, you will be going to the studentaid.gov website. So at the website, there's many different tabs at the top that I just want to go over before we go into creating the FSA ID. So they have a lot of great and helpful information on this website that I suggest that you check out before creating the FAFSA and just throughout your years of schooling. So they have a great information on how the financial aid works if you're new to this. They also have the different types of financial aid that's important. I also want to point out that there is a great link here for aid for military families that I encourage you to check out, as they have a lot of questions that people frequently ask. There's also some more information underneath the apply for aid to complete the FAFSA, such as the deadlines, applying for a PLUS loan if you're interested in that. There's also another tab to complete aid process, such as how aid is calculated, how to compare school aid offers, and just the process throughout the financial aid process. So in order to go and apply for the FSA ID, you're going to be underneath the Apply for Aid tab, and you want to click on the Complete FAFSA form. Here it will bring you to, if you're new to the FAFSA process, and this is where you'll create the FAFSA ID, or if you're a returning user, so once you create the FSA ID, this is where you will plug that information in. But since we're new and we need to create this ID number, we're going to start here, in which it'll bring you to another page where you will follow the prompts throughout and for everything that applies to you. Unfortunately, I can't go any farther than this, as I am also a previous student and I already have my own ID assigned to me. However, this is where you will access this information. Now we're going to go over what to expect after filling out the FAFSA. So after you filled out the FAFSA, you will receive a student aid report, or otherwise known as SAR. This is just a fancy way of saying it's the breakdown of everything that you submitted on the FAFSA. So this student aid report will be sent to you electronically in an email if you listed that email in the FAFSA, or it'll be sent to you in the mail if you didn't list an email address. So make sure you check over your SAR carefully, as mistakes do happen, and you want to make sure that all the information on the FAFSA is correct and up to date. Any students or any schools that you listed on the FAFSA will receive this electronic copy of your FAFSA information, and from there they will determine any financial aid packages you are eligible for. Any school may request some additional information from you, so if they do request information and reach out to you, please submit any information they're asking for as soon as possible. If you have any change in circumstances after you've submitted the FAFSA, including a loss of a job, divorce or separation, death of a spouse, loss of child support, or excessive medical bills that are not covered by insurance, contact the financial aid at the college you will be attending, and they'll be able to review the situation and request any information, additional information necessary for the FAFSA as you may be able to get additional funds for schooling. Now we're going to go over some references for veterans specifically when it comes to the FAFSA. So there were a handful of questions listed on the FAFSA that have ambiguous wording and they sound like they're not directly related to veterans, but they are directly related to veterans. So when you go to fill out the FAFSA, make sure that you have this handout handy so you can go over these questions before you get to them and submit the appropriate information. I will be posting this worksheet in the workshop directions, so this is one of the things that you can check out after you've completed this workshop video. Some of the questions include: how much combat pay or special combat pay did you report on your AGI? This is question 43E. What were your total allowances received? Question 44F. What were your total veteran non-educational benefits? Question 44G. Lastly, what was the total of your untaxed income or benefits? Question 44H. And like I said, this worksheet will be posted in the workshop directions so you can view it and use it when you apply for the FAFSA. Last thing we're going to talk about today is the application for the FAFSA summary. So once you complete your FAFSA, it is due on March 1st, and you need to complete the FAFSA every year that you will be going to school. And you can access the FAFSA at studentaid.government. After you submit the FAFSA, you'll receive and you review your student aid report, otherwise known as the SAR. You'll submit any additional documents or supplemental materials that are requested to from your school. And make sure to keep any copies of documents that you use to complete the FAFSA, as you may need them in the next couple of years when you're using and reapplying for the FAFSA, or any additional information that the school may request from you. It's just good to have those documents on hand. Next, you'll receive the award notification from the school in which you submitted the FAFSA to. And after you've received that award notification, make sure to research any additional financial aid options such as scholarships or grants that may be eligible for you. And if you have any specific questions about your situation specifically, please reach out to the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, as they are able to go over any specifics with you individually. And if you have any questions related to veteran-specific questions, please reach out to the Veterans Upward Bound Department, as we're able to help you and assist you in your process as well. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.